3:28 a.m.
So we just landed in Montreal, which makes me a little bit nervous because the other day they had around 10,000 COVID cases, but that nervosity can be good because I can redirect that from being nervous into being diligent in the way that we're handling COVID. So I'm double masked up with a regular mask underneath of a mask that's extremely similar to an N95 with ventilation. And now we're just gonna run down to catch our flight from Montreal to Belgium. I've been so paranoid about all the little things that I've been hand sanitizing my hands every 15 minutes, even when I haven't touched anything. I'm not gonna lie, I'm starting to get a little bit terrified because my mind is just racing with all the things that could go wrong. Like, what if I get sick? What if I get altitude sickness? What if I get COVID? Also, so far on the COVID side, haven't been seeing any symptoms, and the test that we got right before we left came back negative, so that's a good thing. We got a molecular test, so it came back right away. We might have to take another one
Later.
So today we are starting our hike on Kilimanjaro, starting from the Chame Gate. It's roughly around 1,800 meters. And so far, feel normal, feel the way you regularly do. So, hope this will go well. Excited to see how it turns out.
Day 2.
So, day 2, we made it to Shira Base Camp. This is the second base camp that we're staying at. Today, we hiked from the rainforest up into the heather zone, so that's where we are now. In the heather zone, everything is fairly barren. When you're coming from the rainforest into the heather zone, you can tell that you're getting closer because all of the large trees and vines start shrinking down into shrubs and small trees. Not much lives here except for a few crows or birds that look like crows because they will eat pretty much anything. Today on the hike, I still felt really great. We were hiking up a lot of boulders, large rocks, little rocks. Some of them were a little bit slippery in the morning, and it did rain a little bit, so it did make them a little bit extra slippery later on in the day. Those are probably my favorite part, just because I love hopping up them, things like that. It's very similar to the end of the mountain at Katahdin in Maine. So I've climbed that before, so I had a little bit of experience with it, which was great. There was one sort of rock cliff that did become a bit of a problem though. So I climbed up the cliff to get a couple pictures because it had a great view. You could see the base camp that we were previously at from there before. And we were above the clouds, so everything was amazing. So from that rock you could see everything and everything around you. You could see some really high points on the mountain too. Took a bunch of pictures, and as I was coming down, I slipped on one of the rocks, and I was about probably 15 meters up. By now, we have hiked up to around the 13,000 feet mark in about 5 hours and 10 minutes, which is really good for a steep uphill.
24 hours later.
Today was pretty crappy, not gonna lie. My hands were starting to hurt last night, and I was assuming they were just chapped, so I put a bunch of cream on them, and this morning they were still hurting, so I was like, oh, it's fine, it'll go away eventually. But as we were hiking up through the desert zone, my hands were starting to be in searing hot pain, and I had absolutely no clue what it was either. I wasn't sure if it was just sunburn on my hands, but at the same time, how would it hit both hands? I wasn't sure if it was hand sanitizer burn from too much hand sanitizer, or if I was having an allergic reaction, or it was the medication that I was taking. So my safest bet is to assume that it's a mixture of sunburn, aggravated and accelerated by the alcohol and the hand sanitizer. It's probably the most pain that I've ever been in. It was really bad, and they were shaking at the end. And just to be safe, in case it was sunburn, I put on some aloe vera. They're doing a bit better now. They're still a little bit swollen. They're not very red. When we finally got to camp, I thought that I was gonna pass out, and I kind of did. And when it was time for supper, I couldn't eat a thing. I had to go back to my tent and lie down because I thought I was gonna throw up. So now I have my lovely bucket with me. this entire day we were just hiking through the desert zone, so it was extremely hot whenever the sun was out, but when it went away it got cold really quickly. And then in the middle of the desert zone it just started snowing in the desert zone. So that was really fun, and it was kind of unexpected because I was in a really thin shirt and it was kind of a fight to stay warm. And then once we got to our little rest base camp, we had some lunch and then we walked down a slippery waterfall in the snow and the rain to get to our next base.
Day 4.
To start off the 4th day, here is a really sped up recording that I took of me packing all of my equipment and gear back into my bags for the day to carry with me or to take up to the next base camp. You really want to do this quickly because it can take about 20 to 30 minutes, and it's also freezing in the mornings. So you want to do this and get moving as quickly as possible. So today was a pretty good hiking day. We only hiked for about 4 hours just because we wanted to keep it short so we could get to our last base camp before we summit, because tonight is summit night. We are waking up at 11 p.m. We're going to warm up a little bit, get dressed, and then we're going to start hiking all the way up to the summit at midnight. It's going to take about 6 hours, so we'll get there around sunrise time. And it's going to be pretty chilly.
7 hours later.
Tonight's the night. It is summit night. And I'm going to have some coffee and some hot chocolate. The winds are pretty crazy out. You can definitely hear them. And it's pretty cold too. 6 hours of walking, maybe a little bit more. It's gonna feel like a really long time, and hopefully I don't have to pee that badly. Otherwise that won't be fun in the cold weather. And hopefully we'll arrive just in time for sunrise. After 6.5 hours of climbing up the last stretch of Mount Kilimanjaro, up to Stella Point, and past that all the way to the top, Uru Peak, it was absolutely incredible. We finally reached the top. It was freezing. It was probably around -20, and the winds were just insane. They almost blew me over. But it was all worth it, and I'm so proud of everything that I've accomplished to get here. It was a truly an amazing journey. And if you look over to the side in this video, you can see Red Man's Glacier. In over 100 years, it's lost over 70% of its mass due to global warming and climate change.